What's going on, y'all? Peter Griffin here. So we finally have some new information on the Cyberpunk collab for Wuthering Waves, and no, this video is not clickbait. We have official information on the actual collab from the voice director of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, in which you can see right here we have Wendy Lee, the Cyberpunk Edgerunners voice director, has shown the collab for Wuthering Waves in a now deleted tweet, so I don't think this leak was intentional. Or maybe it was and she was just forced to take it down, but who knows. But anyway, we have new information on this. And honestly, I think it's about time that we've seen something for the collab, because it's been a whole year, well, almost a whole year since the collab was announced, and we've been left in the dark throughout the entirety of the year. Now, obviously, collabs do take time, but I do think they should have been able to at least keep us somewhat updated, or just at least held the announcement till very much later. But anyway, so let's talk about what we could potentially see from this collab. So first things first, we're obviously going to see Lucy as a playable character. She's pretty much confirmed to be one of the playable characters that are going to be in the collab, because we've seen her in the cover in the now deleted tweet, so obviously we're going to be getting Lucy. But how is Lucy going to work in game is the real question. I could honestly see her fighting with her mono wires, and I think the main appeal that she's going to be having within this game is her quick hack abilities, which is her primary way of fighting throughout the anime. So I am curious to see on how Wuthering Waves is going to be able to implement these quick hack abilities. Now, although Lucy didn't fight much in anime, I do see Crow Games improvising and making their own moves for Lucy, which I think is completely fine, and this isn't the first time that it has been done. And what I mean by that is that this isn't the first time that Lucy has gotten her own game original moves before. And a very clear example of this is when Lucy was added to Guilty Gear Strive. And when Lucy was being developed in Guilty Gear Strive, the developers for this game did say that they had to improvise and make their own moves for Lucy, so I could definitely see Crow doing the exact same thing as what Arc System Works did. So I could definitely see Lucy's moveset from Guilty Gear Strive being a very clear influence for Wuthering Waves for when she does get added. Like, they can very easily take inspiration from how she uses her mono wire, how she uses her gun, and how she uses her quick hack in Guilty Gear Strive, which I think was implemented pretty well in my opinion. So I do think there's a decently high chance that Lucy is going to play very similar to how she does in Guilty Gear Strive. And one thing that I want to see is how her quick hack is going to be implemented into Wuthering Waves. And what you see on screen right now are a set of abilities that Lucy's has from her quick hack in Guilty Gear Strive, and I do think that some of these abilities could work in Wuthering Waves. Definitely not all of them, but definitely some could straight out work or just be inspired by for Wuthering Waves. But how I can potentially see Lucy's quick hack working out in Wuthering Waves is by working very similar to Chisa. And what I mean by this is that she could play very similar to Chisa by applying her own DOT effects, similar to how Chisa applies Havoc Bane, defense reduction, negative status effect, damage amplification, how Chisa can also increase the negative status effect limit. So I can definitely see Lucy's quick hack being used to be able to apply negative status effects, or just debuffs in general. Now, do I think we'll be able to pick what debuffs we want Lucy to apply? And I do think there is a very slight chance, but I don't think it's all that much of a possibility. I can see it playing out very similar to how with the Toon Break characters you can pick which Toon Break mode you want, or with AMAT you can pick if you want to use Toon Break mode or use Fusion Burst. And how I can see it potentially working out is that when you're in the skill tree, you could pick which mode you want, like before the battle, obviously. And I do think the quick hack abilities that you might be able to choose from would be just negative status effect, amplification, or just straight defense reduction. So I do think her quick hack could be played very similar to that. Or it could just have a set debuff that it's just gonna permanently have, which I'm completely fine with. And for Lucy's main weapon as to what she's gonna use in Wuthering Waves, like, I'm not talking about her mono wire because obviously she fights with that. I'm talking about her main weapon type is going to be, because these are the weapons that she uses in the anime. And I do think the weapons that stand out the most are obviously Unity and mono wire. And for those who don't know, Unity is pretty much the main handgun that she uses, and then she has her mono wire. And for her main weapon, I do think it's most likely going to be pistol, and then she'll just end up fighting with her mono wire. Or I could see her end up using rectifier, and then she'll end up fighting with her mono wire. So I do think it could be one of those two options, where if she's a pistol user, her summonable weapon will be Unity, or if she's a rectifier user, her summonable weapon will be her mono wire. So I do think it's going to be one of those two options, but if I had to pick one, I think it's most likely going to be pistol. So overall, I do think Lucy could be a very cool character that could be implemented in this game. She could make for a very cool sub DPS and maybe a potential main DPS, but I do think she's going to be a sub DPS. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but I do think her resonance type is going to be Spectro. Now, that's all the information we have that is confirmed so far for who we are getting. Now, for the potential characters that I would like to see are both David and Rebecca, but I mainly want to see David. Now, although I'm not the biggest fan of Rebecca, I'm not going to sit here and deny that she's one of the most popular characters, if not the most popular character from Edgerunners. And David, he's the main character, so I do feel like it would be pretty weird to not have him in the game, considering he is the poster boy for Edgerunners. Like, when you think of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, you think of David 99% of the time. So if David isn't in the collab, I do find that to be pretty weird. Now, if David really is the second character to be added in the collab, I do think he has the potential to be the best Wuthering Waves character ever created. And if Crow Games were able to implement David's Sandevistan ability into Wuthering Waves, I think he could potentially be the best gacha character ever created. And the reason I say that is mainly because of his Sandevistan ability. And what's David's Sandevistan ability is that he moves so fast that time looks frozen to him because of how fast he's going. So imagine Wuthering Waves does actually add David and they add his Sandevistan ability in the game, and you're able to move so fast that time just slows down. You're able to attack freely, and you're able to attack the enemy as well as much as you want. Would be so cool to see. And I do think Kuro is very capable of implementing this in game. And the reason I say that is because we actually have Augusta, who with her Resonance Liberation actually does freeze time. She freezes enemies, and she does also freeze the enemy spawn rate. So I do think Kuro is capable of doing it. Do I think it will be a very one-to-one imitation? I don't think so. I do think it will be very similar, but I don't think it's gonna be like a perfect imitation. But I do think Kuro is capable of doing it. And for David's weapon type, I do think it's very obviously just gonna be pistol. I don't really see him using anything else but pistol. Pistol is really the only one that really fits him in Wuthering Waves, because while he does use this in his Devastan, he really only uses his pistol besides that, so I could really only see it being pistol. And for his resonance type, I could see him being Spectro, but I do think Havoc could also be another potential type because of Cyber Psychosis, so I do think it could be either Spectro or Havoc, but I would honestly bet my money on Spectro. So overall, I do think David would be a very cool character to see in game. He would definitely be the character that I would play the most, like without a doubt. He would be very fun to play. And in all honesty, I do think he could be the most creative character that Wuthering Waves has ever created, in my opinion, if they were to add David. So adding David into this game would just be absolutely amazing, in my opinion. And it would be cool to see a first-time playable David in a video game ever, which is crazy to say considering David is the main character of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and they never really do anything with him. Now, on to Rebecca. I do think it would be cool to see Rebecca, but the reason why I don't want to see her as much is because I just think her gameplay would be boring. Now, don't get me wrong, Rebecca is a very popular character, and I do think she has a slightly higher chance of David, mainly because she's arguably more popular, if not the same level as popularity as David. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility of Rebecca being chosen over David as the second character for the collab. Now, for Rebecca's gameplay, I do think they could very easily replicate all of her fights from the show, where she's just using whichever gun that she has and she's just switching constantly. I do think it would be very cool to see Crow Games implement that. And I don't think it would be as hard to implement it into the game compared to Lucy's Monowire and Davidson Devastan, so I do think Rebecca would definitely be on the easier side to implement into the game. So I think based off that alone, that would give her the slightly higher chance over David. But compared to David Devastan and Lucy's Monowire, I do think Rebecca's gameplay would be on the more boring side, in my opinion. And for her weapon type, she would very easily be pistol, and then her summonable weapon, if she were to be a 5-star, it would be her shotgun. I think that would be pretty cut and clear. And as for her resonance type, I could see her being Havoc, considering she's one of the more violent characters on the show, so I do think Havoc would fit her more. So overall, I do think Rebecca would be a fine character to be added into the game. Out of the 3 characters, though, she's definitely the one I want to see the least, only because her gameplay would be boring. That's just about it. But her gameplay would be easier to implement in game, so that's another reason why I said I could see, again, Rebecca being added over David, as David's would take a lot more time and effort. So overall, that's all the info we have currently for the Cyberpunk collab. We know that Lucy is a confirmed character, and that the other potential character is either going to be David or Rebecca. And I am hoping that the second playable character is going to be David over Rebecca. But if Rebecca were picked over David, I would understand why. Would I be annoyed? Yeah, but I could see why Rebecca would be picked over David. But the best possible outcome, in my opinion, which I do think is the most unlikely outcome, is that we get a 5-star Lucy, 5-star David, and a 4-star Rebecca. I think that's the best outcome right there. And although I do want that outcome to happen, I do think it is also the least likely outcome, because 3 collab characters, whenever a gacha game does do a collab, is usually on the lower side. It's usually always 2, but 3 has been possible before. But I am going to keep my hopes up and hope that 3 characters in this collab is the best possible outcome, so hopefully that does happen. But overall, let me know what you guys think about the leaked Cyberpunk collab information, and what are you guys also expecting from this collab? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell for when I do upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one.